If you're watching this right now, imagine standing before a creature that could tear through armored vehicles with its claws. Now imagine watching a single unarmed human walk into its cage, and what happens next changes an entire galaxy's view of humanity forever. Before we begin, don't forget to hit like if you love apex predator stories, comment your favorite big cat below, and subscribe for more powerful human versus alien tales every week. Ronan Hale stood in silence, his boots planted firmly on the polished obsidian tiles of the Galactic Council's high chamber. Overhead, curved steel beams intertwined like a skeletal ribcage around panoramic windows revealing the emerald swirl of the gas giant below. The chamber reeked of antiseptic and cold arrogance, the scent of civilizations that believed they could never be touched. Rows of alien counselors lined the semicircular throne dais, each towering figure cloaked in translucent silk armor embedded with pulsating veins of bioluminescence. Their eyes glowed in shades of violet, gold, and piercing ice blue as they whispered amongst themselves, clicking mandibles or flicking forked tongues, heads occasionally turning to glance at Ronan as if he were nothing more than an insect trapped between glass. In iron-barred energy cages along the walls paced two war leopards. Each was a monstrous embodiment of apex predation, their obsidian-dappled fur rippling with sinewed muscle under refracted force field light. 6 powerful limbs ended in curved black claws the length of Ronan's forearm. Twin tails, armored in bony ridges, coiled and flicked restlessly. Their broad heads held 4 amber eyes each, slit-pupilled and glowing with baleful intelligence as they observed their surroundings with cold precision. Deep growls rolled from their chests like distant avalanches, vibrating through the floor into Ronan's boots and chest. But he didn't flinch. His expression was unreadable beneath dark stubble and windswept brown hair falling over ice-gray eyes. He stood with the silent patience of a man who knew what real predators looked like, and what they responded to. At the highest throne sat Archon, supreme legislator of the Singarii Dominion, his serpentine body wrapped in cobalt robes that hissed softly as he shifted his coils. His 4-fingered hands rested delicately on the throne's golden armrests, claws tapping in quiet rhythm as he surveyed the human with amused contempt. "This is the best your species offers?" Verlax's voice slithered out, translated instantly through the chamber's speakers into standard Galactic. "A primitive soldier with no fangs, no carapace, no venom sacs. What is his function? Entertainment? Sacrifice? Or both?" Another counselor, massive and plated in obsidian chitin like a living fortress, let out a booming chuckle. "Perhaps he thinks to impress us with brute force. Let him attempt it." Ronan's gaze shifted from the council to the caged leopards. He studied them, noting subtle cues. The position of their ears angled back in aggression yet flicking forward in curiosity, the twitching of their tails not in rage but restless anticipation, the subtle difference between a predator about to kill and one intrigued by something unexpected. He inhaled calmly, filling his lungs with recycled ozone-scented air. There was no fear in his heart, only quiet certainty. As a teenager he'd spent 4 years volunteering at wildlife sanctuaries in Namibia, living among black-maned lions. Later, as a special operations instructor, he trained alongside military K-9 units and observed how unspoken dominance dictated life or death in seconds. The language of apex predators was universal, regardless of the planet. The Archon flicked his tongue, signaling a guard. A Singarii enforcer in reflective purple plate approached Ronan, prodding him with a hooked electrostaff. "Move, primitive," the guard hissed. 2 more enforcers approached, roughly stripping Ronan of his combat vest and boots, leaving him in simple dark trousers. They searched him with invasive thoroughness, removing a hidden wrist blade and a steel ring he wore on a chain around his neck. His expression remained stoic. The ring was just metal, a keepsake from a fallen comrade. He had no intention of using it as a weapon today. "Bring him to the arena," Verlax commanded, his golden eyes narrowing with reptilian delight. "Let our war leopards feast on Earth's finest. It will remind humanity of its place in this galaxy." Ronan descended the gravlift as silence swallowed the grand chamber, the war leopards roaring with a violent hunger that reverberated through the transparent lift walls. The chamber expanded into a wide circular arena, its sand-strewn floor illuminated by brilliant white floodlights mounted overhead. The 2 war leopards were released from their energy cages, their massive paws crunching onto the sand as they slinked forward, muscles rippling beneath fur patterned like liquid night. Around the perimeter, armored alien sentinels stood ready with plasma spears and containment shields. Their gazes flickered with detached interest, already anticipating blood. Ronan walked forward until he reached the center. His bare feet sank slightly into the coarse arena sand, grounding him. He looked up at the observation windows high above where the council loomed like silent gods. The war leopards snarled, their amber eyes locked onto his throat. One opened its mouth to reveal scimitar teeth dripping with viscous venom, a single drop sizzling when it struck the sand below. The other began to circle him, its tails slithering along the ground like armored vipers. Ronan exhaled slowly, unblinking. He didn't shift into a fighting stance. Instead, he stood tall and loose, arms relaxed at his sides, chest exposed and posture calm. He met the leopard's eyes, holding their gaze with unwavering steadiness. Predators didn't respect frantic movement or fear. They respected confidence and the calm certainty of dominance. From above, the Archon tilted his head curiously, a faint hiss escaping his throat. "Why does he not run?" he murmured. Ronan subtly adjusted his weight to his heels, opening his chest, ensuring his breathing remained deep and unhurried. He noted the lead leopard's narrowed pupils and twitching whiskers. Its snarl deepened, not purely aggressive now but testing, assessing, deciding. His mind moved back to the last lion he ever faced up close, a scarred old male in the Tamed dunes. It too had charged with the same testing roar, demanding an answer. Ronan had given it one that day. Today would be no different. Above, counselors leaned forward in silent anticipation as the war leopards lowered their massive bodies into hunting crouches, coiled like ebon springs ready to launch death itself upon the lone human below. Ronan inhaled, his gaze unwavering, the sand whispering around his feet as the chamber fell into breathless silence, waiting for blood or a miracle, and either outcome would change everything for humanity from this moment on. The first war leopard moved with terrifying silence for its size, sliding forward until its shadow swallowed Ronan's bare feet. Its 6 muscular legs flexed and its tails coiled in anticipation, armored ridges along their lengths clinking softly like ceremonial blades. Its 4 amber eyes narrowed, unblinking, as it opened its jaws and released a guttural roar that rattled the viewing glass above. Ronan stood his ground. The sand shifted subtly around his toes as he rolled his weight forward onto the balls of his feet, his spine straight, his chest open and shoulders loose. Sweat slid down the side of his neck but his gaze remained locked onto the predator's eyes. There was no panic in his pupils, only silent calculation. The second leopard slunk to his right, circling, creating a pincer of death around him. Its tail scraped shallow grooves into the arena floor, acidic venom dripping from its fangs in thin threads that hissed upon contact with the sand. Its nostrils flared, tasting his scent, searching for fear. But it found none. Its growl faltered for half a heartbeat. High above, Archon relaxed shifted in his throne, his scales rippling with disquiet. The counselors exchanged glances, silent questions passing through flicks of forked tongues and minute clicks of chitin plates. Why wasn't the human trembling? Why wasn't he backing away? The lead leopard lunged. Its charge was a sudden explosion of muscle and velocity, claws gouging the sand as it surged toward him in a blur of obsidian and rosette spots. The air rippled with its force. But before its claws could find flesh, Ronan pivoted to his left, his movement swift and smooth like wind parting around stone. The leopard's claws tore through empty air, its momentum carrying it past him in a rush of musky heat and bristling fur. Its tails lashed out. Ronan dropped low, feeling one armored ridge scrape a shallow cut across his upper back. Pain blossomed, sharp and immediate, but he didn't cry out. He used the forward spin of his duck to place himself squarely facing the second leopard that had begun its own charge. His breathing remained steady, controlled. His eyes locked onto the new attacker, scanning the faint tremors in its whiskers, the tension around its jaw. He exhaled a deep, low rumble from his chest, the sound vibrating through the arena floor. It wasn't a human sound. It was an echo of something older, primal, a mimicry of a greeting growl that resonated from diaphragm to throat to teeth, carrying frequencies that spoke to the predator's instincts. The second leopard slowed mid-charge, ears flicking forward in confusion. Its tails twitched and its growl turned uncertain, chest heaving with conflicted intention. No prey ever spoke its language. No prey ever greeted it without fear. The first leopard recovered, whirling to face Ronan, its mouth open in a thunderous roar of anger at its missed strike. Drool and venom splattered the sand around his feet. Its eyes locked onto him with lethal focus. It lunged again, this time aiming not to test but to kill. Ronan didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped forward into the strike, his left arm raised, palm flat and fingers splayed wide to show the leopard his unarmed state. He released a second rumble, deeper, forceful and short. It was the sound a dominant male makes when correcting a young challenger. The war leopard hesitated mid-pounce, its four eyes blinking rapidly in instinctive confusion. Its claws grazed his raised forearm but failed to grip as it landed heavily before him, its chest brushing his thigh. It froze, its broad head mere inches from his ribs. He didn't move his hand from its eye line. Slowly, steadily, he rotated his palm downward and lowered it onto the bridge of its nose, his touch firm yet calm. The leopard trembled under his hand, the growl in its throat vibrating through his bones, but it didn't strike. Its ears angled back in conflicted submission. Its massive ribcage rose and fell with each thunderous breath, but it remained still. Ronan shifted his eyes to the second leopard. He turned his torso slightly, exposing his left side while keeping his palm pressed against the first predator's muzzle. He exhaled a slow, silent breath, keeping his energy calm and assertive. The second leopard growled, the sound rising in volume as it slinked forward, its tails whipping agitated arcs behind it. He inhaled sharply, an audible hiss through clenched teeth, and stepped forward with sudden assertiveness, raising his chin and squaring his shoulders. The leopard halted, lowering its head instinctively, ears flicking back. Its growl faded into a low whine as it pawed at the sand, uncertain and unwilling to challenge the silent dominance radiating from the unarmored human before it. Above, the council chamber erupted into chaotic hissing and guttural clicks as counselors surged to their feet. Archon Verlax's golden eyes widened, his pupils narrowing into black slits. His forked tongue flickered rapidly in disbelief. The war leopards had never hesitated, never obeyed an unbonded creature, never shown deference to prey. Yet here they were, both lowering their heads to this unarmed human male standing calm and unflinching among them. "Stop this!" Verlax snarled, his voice amplified by the chamber speakers. "End this farce. Kill him now." But the arena guards hesitated, eyes darting between Ronan and the submissive predators. No command baton or electrostaff would work fast enough if these leopards chose to defend their new master. Ronan ignored the council's panicked shouts. He lowered himself slowly onto one knee between the two leopards. The first rumbled deep in its chest, pressing its broad head against his shoulder with a vibrating purr so powerful it resonated through his ribs. The second slunk forward, its armored tails coiling around his waist protectively as it nuzzled his chest with surprising gentleness. He ran his hands across their muzzles, feeling the warmth of their breath and the quivering tension in their jaws as they fought against instinct to taste his flesh. His fingers brushed over whisker pads, scarred and bristly, and scratched behind their ears where armored plating faded into thick velvet fur. The leopards closed their amber eyes in slow blinks, their massive bodies relaxing beside him. High above, the council fell silent, the only sounds remaining were the heavy, rumbling purrs filling the arena like a living engine of thunder. Ronan raised his gaze to meet Archon Verlax's slitted golden eyes. There was no triumph in his expression, only calm inevitability. He didn't need to speak for the meaning to pierce every counselor's mind like a spear. "You thought you owned fear. You thought you commanded beasts. But power is earned, not forced. And today, everything you believed about humanity just changed forever." The war leopard's tails coiled tighter around his waist, their massive heads resting against his chest and thigh, vibrating with a subsonic harmony that rolled through the silent arena like a victory drumbeat no alien could deny. Ronan closed his eyes briefly, feeling their warmth, knowing this was only the beginning. Above, the counselors exchanged looks of dawning panic, their plans unraveling in the silent shadows of two purring apex predators tamed by an unarmed human who never raised a weapon, only his will. The chamber trembled with the vibrations of two war leopards purring against the human kneeling between them. Sand shifted under their enormous paws as they settled closer, each exhalation emerging as a rumbling cloud of heated breath around Ronan. Their armored tails coiled loosely around his waist and shoulders, their muscular flanks pressing into his sides with a silent promise of both violence and protection. Archon Verlax's tongue flicked the air rapidly, tasting the phenomenal storm of confusion and fear rolling through the council chamber. The alien lords muttered in dozens of dialects, their voices echoing against polished obsidian walls. Each counselor had believed these leopards were untamable without neural bindings. Now their apex weapons sat docile under a human's touch. Ronan rose slowly to his feet. The war leopards shifted with him, their enormous heads lifting to follow his motion, tails uncoiling but remaining close, tips flicking lightly against his calves. He ran a hand along the ridge of the nearest leopard's armored spine, feeling the warmth of life and coiled power beneath the bone plates. Its ears flicked back, and it leaned into his touch with an almost feline softness despite its massive bulk. He stepped forward and both leopards shadowed him. Their steps were silent over the sand, their bodies moving in near-perfect synchronicity with his own. Every twitch of his wrist or flicker of eye contact sent unspoken commands rippling through their predatory minds. Ronan didn't smile, but his posture shifted subtly, chest expanding with silent confidence as he raised his eyes to meet the counselors glaring down from above. Archon Verlax hissed, slamming his clawed fist onto his throne's armrest. "Kill him now. Release the containment drones." Around the arena perimeter, heavy mechanical shutters opened with a hiss. Rows of slender aerial drones rose into the chamber, each bristling with plasma emitters calibrated to kill a charging leopard or armored insurgent in milliseconds. They hovered with insectal precision, weapons angled downward, humming with lethal energy. Ronan didn't flinch. He turned slightly, angling his body to ensure the drones entered the peripheral vision of the war leopards. Their ears flattened against their skulls as their growls deepened, chests expanding with rolling bass vibrations. Venom dripped from their fangs, sizzling against the sand below, as they angled their massive bodies protectively between Ronan and the hovering threat. Archon Verlax leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. "You think to command them against us? They are bonded to the Dominion. They will die before attacking their creators." Ronan tilted his head, studying the war leopard's breathing patterns and tail positioning. They weren't locked in aggression. Their pupils weren't wide with kill frenzy, but focused, assessing, ready to act if he willed it. He raised his hand to chest level, fingers splayed, palm open. The leopard's growls faltered. Their tails twitched with anticipation. The counselors' voices rose into a cacophony of fear and anger, echoing against the grand chamber's vaulted steel beams. One chitin-plated warlord clacked his mandibles in disbelief. "This is impossible. They do not obey prey. They do not submit to soft tones and open hands." Ronan lowered his hand, curling his fingers slightly into a relaxed fist. Both war leopards eased their stance, shoulders dropping a fraction, tails lowering to half-mast. He inhaled, letting his chest expand fully, then released a single low chest-deep growl that resonated with frequencies he knew they felt more than heard. The greeting growl shifted halfway into a command chuff, ending with a faint vocal click behind his teeth. The first leopard dipped its massive head and pressed its muzzle into his thigh, purring deeply. The second moved behind him, leaning its armored shoulders into the small of his back with a weighty possessiveness. Their four amber eyes closed in slow blinks, signaling calm acceptance of his dominance. Archon Verlax recoiled back into his throne. His tongue flicked the air in a rapid, agitated blur. "They recognize him as Alpha," he whispered to himself. Ronan looked up at the alien lord, eyes narrowing as if studying a dangerous but fragile insect. His voice carried no hatred, only a quiet finality. "They recognize what you never gave them. Respect. Leadership. Purpose beyond violence." The drones above began adjusting their targeting arrays, triangular reticles flashing onto the leopard's massive skulls. Ronan saw the flicker of plasma ignition coils along their undercarriages. The war leopards felt it too. Their ears pivoted toward the humming energy as their growls deepened into guttural threats. Saliva and venom dripped faster from their fangs as their muscles coiled. Ronan raised his hand once more. His palm hovered over the lead leopard's muzzle, thumb brushing the short velvet fur beneath its eye. The massive predator rumbled softly, its breathing slowing despite the looming threat. Its tails relaxed against the sand, the armored ridges ticking lightly as they shifted position. He lowered his gaze to the floor, focusing inward for a moment. His heart beat steadily, unhurried. His breathing remained calm. Every muscle in his body exuded quiet confidence rather than tension. In that stillness, he felt their pulse align with his, their minds sink to his silent will. The drones descended, plasma emitters glowing with charging power. Sparks arced between their emitter coils, casting dancing shadows across the arena sand. The war leopards tensed, their tails raising like striking serpents, but Ronan exhaled a single soft breath, barely audible over the hum of the drones. Both leopards froze mid-growl. Their tails paused in the air, held steady like raised banners awaiting command. Their amber eyes glowed with unwavering focus on the drones above, but they did not move to attack. Archon Verlax leaned forward again, his tongue tasting the pheromones of discipline and control rolling off the human below. There was no rebellion in Ronan's posture, no wild challenge or desperate threat. There was only quiet certainty. the certainty of a male who commanded apex predators with nothing but breath, posture, and an unbreakable will. Verlax slithered back into his throne, tail coils tightening around his legs. "Deactivate the drones?" he hissed. "Now." The chamber fell silent except for the whirring retreat of the drones into their recessed alcoves and the continued thunderous purrs vibrating from the war leopard's chests into Ronan's bones. Around him, the guards shifted uncomfortably, lowering plasma spears and containment batons. None would dare move against him now. Ronan stroked the leopard's muzzle again, feeling the warm breath wash across his abdomen. Its eyes closed, trusting and calm, despite every instinct bred into it for generations. He pressed his forehead gently against its armored brow, inhaling its musky, iron-scented fur. A memory flickered behind his eyes, of a sunset over the Tamed dunes, an old lion pressing its scarred head against his chest in silent acknowledgement of his place in its world. He opened his eyes and looked up at the silent counselors. Their gazes no longer burned with smug superiority. They burned with fear. With wonder. With dawning comprehension that this lone human represented something their genetic sciences and domination programs could never replicate. An unbreakable spirit capable of commanding beasts by will alone. Ronan stood, his shoulders rolling back as he faced them all. The war leopards flanked him, massive heads raised, tails sweeping the sand in rhythmic arcs of silent threat and devotion. Their purrs rolled through the chamber like an approaching thunderstorm, vibrating the bones of every alien who dared to watch. Archon Verlax's golden eyes narrowed to slits. His tongue flicked once, tasting the change in the air. "Bring him to the council floor," he hissed softly to his guards. "We must decide if humanity is an asset, or a threat too dangerous to live." Ronan didn't wait for their approach. He stepped forward, the leopards matching his pace in perfect harmony, each movement declaring with silent certainty that the age of human submission had ended, and the age of true dominion had just begun. The war leopards moved in flawless step with Ronan as he approached the council floor. Their broad armored shoulders rolled like living siege engines beside him, tails sweeping the sand in arcs that flicked tiny grains against his calves with every stride. High above, the viewing glass of the arena retracted, revealing the solemn magnificence of the council chamber under vaulted steel beams alive with cold starlight. Archon Verlax descended from his throne, coils of cobalt-scaled body winding down the marble ramp with a deliberate grace. His golden eyes glowed with conflicted fury and intrigue, forked tongue flicking the air rapidly as he stopped just beyond reach of the leopard's coiled tails. Ronan kept his gaze steady, unblinking as the war leopards flanked him, heads lowered in readiness. The taller of the two nuzzled his hip briefly before raising its gaze to sweep the council floor, eyes narrowed in silent vigilance. Its muscles rippled beneath obsidian-dappled fur, each movement radiating power. The second leopard leaned its armored brow lightly against Ronan's thigh, rumbling deep in its chest, the vibration grounding him in this moment as reality merged with destiny. Verlax's pupils contracted to thin vertical slits. "You have done what no other creature in this dominion has achieved," he hissed, voice slithering across the floor like poisoned silk. "They obey you as bonded kin. Explain this, now." Ronan drew a slow breath, letting it fill his chest and expand his ribcage before releasing it softly. The war leopard's ears flicked back and forth, picking up the subtle rhythms of his breathing. Their tails stilled mid-sweep, tips hovering above the sand, awaiting his command. Their stillness radiated a silent truth the council could no longer ignore. These were not enslaved weapons. They were apex predators who had willingly chosen him. "They obey leadership," Ronan said quietly, voice resonating through the chamber's silent anticipation. "Not domination. Not pain. Not fear. Leadership." The nearest war leopard chuffed, its 4 amber eyes blinking slowly as it pressed its massive muzzle into his palm. He stroked the thick, warm fur, feeling the vibration of its purr ripple through his wrist and forearm. He lowered his gaze to meet its alien yet familiar feline stare, understanding passing silently between predator and human. Verlax coiled closer, the muscles in his serpentine body tightening as though ready to strike. "Do you believe you control them? That you control us? That your species has any place but under our boots, scrabbling for crumbs like rodents?" Ronan shifted his feet slightly in the sand, grounding himself in perfect balance. His shoulders squared, his posture radiating the same unbreakable calm that had stilled the leopard's lethal instincts. He raised his eyes to meet Verlax's golden stare. "I don't control them," he said. "They choose to follow. Just as one day your people will choose. Or they'll be left behind." The words were delivered softly, without anger or arrogance, yet they struck the chamber with the force of a thunderclap. Counselors hissed and clacked their mandibles, translucent armored cloaks rippling with agitated bioluminescent pulses. One beetle-like warlord rose to his full towering height, chitin plates grinding against each other with a screech. He threatens us with beasts bred from our own sciences. This human must die before he spreads this contagion of submission by choice. Ronan's gaze shifted to him briefly, impassive. The war leopards followed his eyes, their ears flattening, throats vibrating with a low growl that rolled across the chamber floor like distant thunder. The warlord sat back down abruptly, armor plates rattling with unspoken fear. Verlax's tongue flicked the air with manic rapidity as he tasted the pheromones of shifting loyalty within the chamber. His coils tightened around themselves, squeezing the edge of his ceremonial ramp. You believe yourself untouchable because of these creatures? Because you've whispered to them like a primitive shaman in the dust. Ronan said nothing. Instead, he placed his hand upon the armored brow of the taller leopard, his thumb brushing a faint scar across its left orbital plate. The leopard rumbled and lowered its massive head until it nearly touched the sand, ears flattened in quiet surrender, tails curled protectively around Ronan's calves. The second leopard turned its 4 eyes to Verlax, gaze unwavering and cold. Its lips peeled back to reveal scimitar fangs dripping venom, a silent threat that needed no translation. Its tail thumped the ground once, a seismic punctuation that made the council chamber tremble. For a long moment, silence reigned. Verlax inhaled sharply, pulling back a fraction as his coils loosened. His golden eyes flickered with something Ronan recognized from 1,000 battlefields. The instant a tyrant realized brute force could no longer guarantee obedience. He raised his chin and spoke with quiet finality. You misunderstand, Archon. I didn't come here to tame your beasts. I came here to show you what humanity truly is. We're not conquerors. We're not prey. We're not chained to the illusions of dominance. We are what these creatures see now. Partners. Leaders. Family when earned. The war leopards rumbled as if in agreement, massive shoulders pressing into his sides with gentle, crushing warmth. Their tails flicked once, sweeping the sand in unison. Around them, the council sat frozen in silent horror and reluctant awe. No chains held these apex predators to Ronan's will. No electroshock training or neurological implants dictated their behavior. They had chosen him in the simplest and oldest bond of the wild. Respect granted for respect given. Leadership earned by presence, calm and unbreakable resolve. Verlax's tongue flicked once, slowly. His eyes narrowed. Perhaps you are useful. Perhaps you and your people can train others to do the same. Perhaps there is profit in your anomaly. Ronan looked at him, gaze cool and distant, as the war leopards pressed tighter against his flanks. Their purrs rose into a chorus of thunder that reverberated through the chamber walls and up into the vaulted beams above. Dust and fine shards of stone rained down in tiny sparkling streams as their subsonic growls merged with the frequencies of the station structure itself. He said nothing more. Words were wasted on creatures who saw every bond as a transaction. Instead, he raised his hand to chest height, palm open, fingers slightly curled. The war leopards rose to their full height, shoulders nearly level with his head, tails coiling elegantly in preparation. Their massive jaws parted, revealing cavernous maws bristling with fangs and dripping venom onto the sand. Around the council chamber, alien lords flinched back in their thrones. Guards raised plasma spears defensively, but none dared take a step forward. Ronan turned his gaze slowly across each face watching him from above. His eyes, pale gray and unwavering, carried a silent message that needed no words. You may command fleets. You may enslave species. But there will always be something you cannot dominate with terror. Something that will kneel only for the worthy. He dropped his hand to his side. The war leopards closed their jaws, tails relaxing to sweep the sand behind them. They lowered their massive heads to flank his shoulders, eyes blinking slowly in quiet harmony with his own calm breathing. Verlax inhaled sharply. Remove him to the diplomatic wing, he commanded in a thin voice. We will reconsider the human delegation's status after today's demonstration. Ronan didn't react to the order. Instead, he turned and walked slowly across the sand, each footstep silent and grounded. The war leopards matched him stride for stride, tails sweeping behind like living banners of silent conquest. As they passed under the archway leading from the arena into the marble corridors beyond, the taller leopard turned its head and released a final growl back into the council chamber. The rolling bass vibration echoed for long seconds after they vanished from view. In the silent chamber above, Archon Verlax sat trembling in his throne, golden eyes unfocused as he tasted the last traces of human pheromone drifting in the recycled air. It smelled not of prey, not of predator, but of something older. Something that would change the fate of species across the stars. And deep in his chest, buried beneath layers of arrogance and power, for the first time in his reign, he felt something he could not suppress.